We're very excited that this week we have Peter Brunette, the outreach coordinator with the Omaha Henry Dorley Zoo and Aquarium, joining us, and he is going to give us a virtual tour of the aquarium and teach us about some of the opportunities available to you, your after-school programs, and families through the zoo. So I'm Kim Larson with the 21st Century Community Learning Center program, and on behalf of the conference partners, we are really appreciative that you're able to join us today. Conference partners include Nebraska Department of Ed, the 21st Century Community Learning Center After School program, UNL Extension, Click to Science PD, and Beyond School Bells. So we all thank you for joining us. And Peter, we'll let you go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kim, for having me. Thank you, everyone who tuned in today over your lunch. If you don't mind, I like it if you can keep your cameras on so I can see you, get a little bit of feedback, so it feels like I'm talking to people instead of just to this camera. I get it's okay if you don't want me to see you shoveling food in your face. I'm not going to pressure. But as long as I've got a bunch of you where I can see and I can get some feedback, I really appreciate that. So my name's Peter, and I am here in the aquarium at Omaha's Henry Dorley Zoo and Aquarium. So just by show of hands, who's only here because you wanted to see some fish today? Well, I know that a couple of you tuned in. You're like, I bet I can see some fish. I'm just going to start off by showing you where I am, because while the zoo's closed, while the zoo was closed, I had this place to myself. And even now that the zoo's open, it's an outdoor walking safari for now. So we haven't figured out a good way to have people safely social distance in the buildings. So I get this place to myself. It's just me and all these fish and sharks. And what we're looking at is a whole bunch of fish that are just swimming around. And there's a big shark coming right at us. That is a sandbar shark. Anytime I look at the tank, there's a good chance you're going to see some of those big gray sharks, because they always have to swim so that they can breathe. If they stop swimming, they stop breathing. It's something called ram breathing. So as we watch, they'll always be swimming throughout the whole program. There's a couple more species of sharks down at the bottom of the tank that don't have to swim, or that don't have to keep swimming to breathe. This is a nurse shark. They're called nurse sharks because they suck. And I mean that in a good way. What they do is they suck food into their mouth. They suck so much water that instead of reaching out and chasing down their prey, they can actually suck that prey into their mouth. Oh, and there's another shark swimming right by us here too. This is a zebra shark. They're not in the best position for us to see over here. Let's see if I can snag them on the camera. There it is. Zebra sharks don't look anything like zebras when they're adults. We also don't feed them zebras. I had a kid ask me that one day. They're called zebra sharks because right after they hatch out of their eggs, they are black and white striped. You can see on this one shark, there's still a little vestige of the stripes left. The older they get, the more they lose those stripes and become completely spotted like this. But I'm not just here to show you sharks all day. I am here to talk about some other things. So let's go over to the screen share. And I'd like to know what your experience is with virtual field trips. You can either submit the answers to this for me on the chat, or you can hold up your fingers. It's a 1 through 5. So let me know how much experience you have with virtual field trips. From 1, you haven't even heard of them, all the way up through 5, you were Zooming before it was cool. What's the experience level that we have with this group? Oh, and I'm seeing a lot of 2s and 3s, people who just got into it, and we do have a couple of 5s out there, the people who were already on Zoom years ago. So we've got a good, healthy mix. That's great to see. I'm gonna go back to my share. Virtual field trip is a term that I think has been used in a lot of different ways recently, and it's really changed. But what I'm going to talk about is fairly specific. It's an interactive class, and that's what we've been doing for years. But there's quite a few other things the zoo does and other groups do that are labeled as virtual field trips. That goes everything from a live webcam. We have some webcams here at the zoo you can tune into, and pre-recorded videos. But what I'm going to focus on is talking about the virtual field trips that are hosted live by an educator, because I really believe that the best virtual field trips are the ones that are going to give your group a personal connection to these organizations. It's not just, oh, we tuned in, we saw it on the computer. The fact that you're here talking to me live, where you can communicate and I can see you as well as you can see me, gives a very different level of connection than if you just click on a live stream or a live cam. And the best programs are also going to be aligned with the state and local standards. So when you just see a webcam, everything else falls on the teachers to make it connected to what you're doing. When you sign up to a program like ours and like a lot of other organizations do, you know that it's already going to fit what you're learning in school. Typically, this style program is fee-based because museums and organizations like zoos tend to be nonprofits, tend to not have huge budgets to offer these for free. There are some groups that do offer them free, most notably the National Park Service offers these programs for free, and a handful of other organizations have donors or a mission that says we provide all of our education for free to everyone. Things have changed though recently. This is a picture of one of my virtual field trips, and it looks actually a lot like the group that I'm doing now, where kids are all from home. And we were already positioned through Zoom to be connecting with kids in their classes from home. And my job has very much changed from classroom connections to at-home connections. But because we were already doing this live virtual content, it was a really natural fit. And the main thing I was doing was coming up with different ways of interacting. And so what I'd like to do is give you a little bit to interact with today. This is part of our virtual field trip on oceans. I was thinking I'd put it all together. I'm like, no, we're gonna blend it all. We're gonna do a little bit here, a little bit there. So I've got an activity for you. I brought some things that might or might not be from animals. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold something up. And if you think that what I'm holding up is from an animal, I want you to give me 2 big thumbs up. But if you think that what I'm holding up is not from an animal, I want you to give me 2 big thumbs down. The trick here though, is that 2 of the answers are gonna be this, which means both an animal and not an animal at the same time. Whoa, all right. Here's your first object. Do you think it's from an animal or not from an animal? And we're gonna go at breakneck lightning speed through this. This is definitely from an animal. This is a sea sponge, and sea sponges eat plankton. They're a filter feeder, so they eat, they grow, they reproduce. That's how I know it's from an animal. How about this sponge? We're a lot more hesitant this time. Everyone was right on it before, now we're slower. Well, yeah, the last sea sponge was an animal. This sea sponge is an animal too. Okay, how about this sea sponge? Yeah, definitely not. I got this one at Walmart. The sponges you get at home are made of rubber. That's a lot easier than harvesting them from the ocean. You got that right? You can give yourself a really pokey pat on the back. Okay, what about, oh, big seashell. Well, this is not a crab shell, but this was from an animal called a sea snail, a conch. And it looked a lot like the snails that live in Nebraska. So it's absolutely from an animal. Oh, some of you are great at Zoom. I'm seeing the thumbs up being used. Okay, how about clamshell? Yes, this is from an animal. Clams actually move. If anyone's been in a place where there's clam hunting, you take a shovel and you try to catch them, but the clams actually go farther down underground and run away from you when you try to do that. What about seagrass? And I can trick a lot of people on seagrass, but you're a group of adults, you are all saying not a chance. You're right, it doesn't eat. Plants get their energy from the sun through photosynthesis. So plants, fungi, bacteria are alive, but they are not animals. 3 objects left. How about this giant piece of coral? Well, coral confused scientists for a while because just like an animal, it eats. But just like a plant, it gets energy from the sun through photosynthesis. So it's actually both. Coral is a symbiotic relationship between an animal called a polyp, which is like a jellyfish on a stick, along with a plant called algae, specifically zooxanthellae algae, if you want a really tough spelling word. All right, just two more objects. What do you think about this one? This is more coral. And the last object. Oh, I tricked some of you. This is some concrete I found in the parking lot. But I couldn't have tricked any of you if I'd shown you this first, because it doesn't look like an animal. But all these animals I showed you have something in common. They lack bones. If you feel your spine, that's called your vertebrae. And these animals, and I often ask kids to put this in the chat, I'm hoping you all know that they're all kinds of invertebrates, and you could have all filled that in on the chat. So let's go and look at another invertebrate. And I'll stop pretending you're kids participating in my activity here. But I do want to show you this coral reef. And what we're looking at is not an anemone. What we're actually looking at is a coral. It's a coral called wavy hand coral. Corals and anemones are both closely related because they're both cnidarians. They have those same stinging nematocyst cells. And the clownfish has the same relationship in this coral that it would have if it were living in an anemone. It helps clean it, it helps keep fish from eating it, and in exchange, it gets a safe place to live. This coral isn't very colorful, and it's down here at the bottom of our coral reef. This coral gets most of its energy from eating. We have to feed these corals. And if you look carefully, you can see that each polyp is like a waving hand on an arm. We call it wavy hand coral because of that. The corals higher up in this tank, closer to the light, are going to have more bright colors because the zooxanthellae algae are more important for it. So all those greens and purples and blues, those are the natural colors of this coral. And we see that more on the ones that are closer to the light. They need to eat less food because they can get more of their energy from photosynthesis. So some of the opportunities for virtual field trips are not just going to see a place. Obviously at the zoo, we connect you through biomes. We teach all about fish, the oceans, all these various deserts, rainforests. But a lot of these can be used as a way of connecting to experts. Morrill Hall has a way where people can just log in and have a conversation with a paleontologist. This picture is from a place where you can actually witness an autopsy. You can sign up so that your group, especially if you have a high school group and you don't have access to hospitals or you want to take the gross factor out of some of these dissections, you can do a virtual dissection so that you don't have to have that in your classroom. They also go as far as just going to see puppet shows. One of the most popular virtual field trip providers is a puppetry museum in Atlanta, and kids work with them to build puppets or to watch puppet shows or to learn about various other topics through puppets. So there's a lot of really cool things that are out there that are not just finding a place and seeing a place. It really can fit in with the lessons, fit in with what your group is learning. At the zoo, we have 5 options. We have deserts, elephants, oceans, penguins, and rainforests. We also have an upper level endangered species one that's not listed on here. And then we've expanded our virtual options to include summer camps this year and behind the scenes tours. So as people are getting more comfortable with Zoom, we've put some options for individuals out there. These were all designed for classes for your after school group, but we found that individuals also want to connect with these virtual programs. So now you can also go behind the scenes at the Desert Dome or the gorillas and see what the zoo looks like behind the scenes where we make everything run. I want to talk about a couple of tips and tricks for your Zoom presentations. And one thing that you may have noticed is that as you're watching this, you're seeing what I want you to see. So I haven't asked for any questions, but when I work with groups for questions, if you always keep one video spotlighted, Even if someone else starts talking, if someone jumps in, it doesn't flip over to that. If Kim were to ask a question, I can spotlight her and the whole group can see her, because while I have things spotlighted, you don't have the ability in most clients to go and view that gallery to see all your friends. It's a way of helping control the meeting. But then when you spotlight someone, that person gets to be on the screen. Everyone gets to see the person and feel like they have a connection to the rest of their class without being able to kind of goof off. You may have also noticed that sometimes if you are sharing a screen like this, people start drawing all over your screen and you're like, oh my gosh, why will people draw over my screen? How do I stop it? And you might have found that the only way for you to do that was to stop sharing and go back and share again. But there is a feature, and you can go to the advanced Zoom options on this, or you can just click on your little banner where it says more when you're sharing, and you will be able to disable participant annotations is what it's called. And that will stop anyone watching your meeting from taking that over. Another big thing that you really need to have, and I do this with all the teachers, is a co-host. When I'm presenting and when I'm talking, and I'm sure you've encountered this even in conferences, the person who's talking and presenting needs to be able to share, they need to be able to see the chat, they need to have some control, but they're not going to be on the ball if someone's in the waiting room or if someone's got their mic on. So having a co-host who can help with that is absolutely crucial to making your meeting go smoothly. I hope we're not getting too dizzy with the back and forth. I always disable chat for anyone except to the host. I think it's pretty rare where you're going to need participants to be able to chat amongst themselves if you're working with a school group. Obviously for adult groups, this is something a little bit different. You might be able to have an adult conversation, but I found with kids, private chat between kids is 90% bullying. So we turn that off. But I want people to be able to chat with me. I think there's a lot of interaction. If I ask an open-ended question, I can have you answer back in chat without having to unmute yourself and make those sounds. The other area that we've seen is virtual backgrounds are a place where kids can share whatever image they want with each other. They can get off the screen and they can just share pictures back and forth. And I've talked to multiple teachers who've got to the point where they actually will boot the kids out of the meeting if they have the virtual background on. But you can go into your Zoom settings and you can just disable that for everybody and not have to worry about those virtual backgrounds, which seem to be just a major distraction to the kids. Hopefully you also know that if you're sharing a video, there's a little button you have to push or your video is jumpy. But what you might not know is Zoom doesn't default to HD video. I forgot to put this on here. If you're like, well, why doesn't my video look good? Go into your settings, make sure HD video is enabled. And you have to do that on every device that you connect to. So if I log my account into a new computer, I'll need to go and make sure that I've got the HD video enabled. Otherwise, when you see me, it's going to be 360p. That's Zoom's way of saving bandwidth. But if you're aware of it, you can go in and you can do that. Another really cool thing that we do here is in Zoom, you can have lots of cameras. And right now I'm pretty tethered to where I am, but if I want to move around, I have my cell phone and I can connect my cell phone to a meeting as another device and just go ahead and spotlight my cell phone, and then I'm free to walk around the aquarium. But what's even cooler is I also have a microscope right here. And so I can just switch over my Zoom view, and now we can see this microscope. And that's my finger to show you how much it zooms. And if I wanted to show you something really cool, I've actually got right here something super cool to show you under the microscope, which is a feather. And so having extra little technology bits like this really, I think, changes the feel of your Zoom meeting. It's no longer a talking head on a PowerPoint. It's no longer just me walking around talking into my cell phone. It's something that's really a unique kind of science thing. And microscopes in particular, I've worked with groups from kindergarten through adult where a guess the object under the microscope game in the chat goes over really well. because even for adults, it's not obvious what it is once you zoom it in this much. This feather, by the way, is from a blue and gold macaw. And the way you can switch to a different microscope, my microscope, or to a different camera, my microscope is just a USB Celestron microscope. And right next to where it has the picture of the video camera is a little caret symbol. And mine, because I have multiple cameras hooked up, has the microscope listed as one. And I can just seamlessly switch between my two different cameras in the same way you might have found out if you attach a webcam or you attach a microphone, you can switch between those. The biggest advice for Zoom is to hardwire. Zoom, especially as it's been getting busier, is having more bandwidth issues than they used to. So if you can be hardwired, have an Ethernet cable, it's going to help tremendously for your Zoom calls. I've been trying to demo some of these interactive elements. I don't like Zoom where the kids just sit there. So for asking questions, I'll do them 3 different ways. Kids can raise their physical hand. That's my favorite way. And I demoed this with spotlighting someone, then you spotlight the person who's got your question. But you can also do questions over chat. I prefer not to do those as much unless people can't be face-to-face, because I think for a participant, when I watch, I don't like to just hear a voice or to have the person just read the question. I really like to see who's asking the question. I think as a participant, I enjoy that, and it makes me feel more connected. I also like to do a lot of movements. I demoed the one with the thumbs up, thumbs down. I almost always do something like that. You can even just do those as a check for understanding. Give me a thumbs up if you're with me. Give me a thumbs up if you're awake. Give me a thumbs down if I went too fast. And I think that works a little bit better than the built-in feedback. The built-in Zoom feedback, because I'm looking at the camera, not at my computer screen, I often don't see that you're too fast, you're too slow feedback, so I disable that for my meetings. And then with our camps, we're doing something cool, which is to require materials. So along with your Zoom link email, you can say, please gather a pen, a piece of paper, a ball, all these other items that you might use, and then you cannot be afraid of having really big things. So with adults, I'm not going to ask you all to stand up, but when I work with little kids, I ask the whole class to stand up, and I get them all waddling like a penguin and hopping without using their knees like a penguin and getting them up and moving around the room. I think we have a little perception that we're at a computer. We need to be sitting there at the computer, and getting kids standing and moving around is probably more important when they're home on Zoom than it is when they're in the classroom, because if they're sitting there tuned out, they're tuned out. If you get them up and moving, they know they're part of this class. They know they're really participating and actively engaged. So technology has changed. Our conference room, one of them, we actually were able to get permission to take a camera off of the wall so we could bring it around the zoo and have it be more useful than being tethered to a classroom. In the past, this is the level of technology that we use in a classroom. I think it's going to go back to this. It's a computer. It's connected to a TV or a projector. It's already there. This is allowing classes to connect with each other, with me, with other organizations, and this is what we're going to see again with after schools in the future. This is basic technology. You don't need anything too special. But a lot of you have started to notice that some people look better on Zoom. Some people sound better on Zoom, and you're wanting those enhanced experiences. I've talked to an awful lot of people, and there's widespread consensus that the best reasonably priced microphone and camera combo is the Logitech C920. It makes a world of difference. Most laptops, even high-end laptops, cheap out on the camera. When you buy your cell phone, they put a really good camera in because people care about the camera quality of their phone. People don't worry about it with their computer, so you get a really cheap camera even on high-end computers. I've got a $1,000 laptop. The camera on it's garbage. If you add the C920, it really helps. And that blue snowball mic, if you do a lot, it helps the voice sound clear and natural. It's a cheap, affordable webcam microscope, or sorry, broadcasting microphone. And then speakers when you're in a classroom. I've never had a group that just couldn't make the program work because the video wasn't working. I have had multiple groups not be able to make it work because the speakers weren't loud enough and the kids couldn't hear. So you can't have too loud of a speaker set up even for a 20-kid classroom. The next level up of technology is this Logitech webcam conference cam. When you start to add a remote and the ability to move around like I've got with mine here, it really makes a big difference. And you can spend $1,000 on that. You can spend $300 on it. But if you're doing a lot of broadcasting out to your kids, if you're at your center and your kids are at home, I would strongly consider looking into something like this so that you have the ability to move your camera around. All right, here's a quiz. We use a lot of different software for connecting through video conferencing. Here are some logos without names. If we had more time, I'd ask you to type them in, but this will just be a fun quiz for you to do on your own. 6 different logos. Do you recognize them all? And more importantly, have you used all 6 of them to connect? Here's your answers. Raise your hand if you got all those right and you knew every single one of those connections. Anyone know all 6 of them? It's the WebEx, I think, is the tricky one. WebEx is the one that not as many people are using. And 2 of them are made by Microsoft. Microsoft's currently competing against themselves. They've got Skype, Skype for Business, and they've got Teams, and they're kind of competing against themselves with it. My preference is for Zoom because I have so much more control over who I see in Zoom, what participants can do, what I can do with my sharing. The levels of control and the ease of use for Zoom are just so far above and beyond everything else. As far as picture quality, I think Teams, especially on a cell phone, if you're broadcasting from a cell phone, it's going to look better over Teams, especially if you use an Android, because Zoom, when it connects through the cell phone, is lowering the picture quality somehow. I'm not exactly sure why, but whenever you connect your phone through Zoom, even if you have rockstar internet connection, you have an amazing phone, it just looks a little bit grainy, and Teams doesn't have that problem. There are issues when you switch to any other platform as far as licensing goes. People don't know WebEx, so even though it's a good platform, they don't know it. And then Teams requires a license, and so a lot of people don't want to use that one. And Skype still has a bad reputation, and I've heard some of it's kind of deserved as far as security goes, that Skype on your computer is still not as secure as it should be. Last time I gave a presentation, I was talking about this amazingly wonderful grant from NIDA where schools could connect and get free virtual field trips. Sadly, now that we're at a point where we need that the most, the grant had to be canceled because NIDA's conference was completely canceled. NIDA makes all of their money from their conference from the vendor fees, and without the vendor fees, they completely lost funding and had to cancel this grant, which is a huge loss because this is a time when we're all into blended learning more than ever. People are understanding the need, and I'm hoping that someone's going to step up and try to fill in that gap. But for right now, there is not a good source of grant money for Nebraska schools for virtual field trips. During the day, the ESUs have some money, but again, there's more and more people wanting those same resources. So there are places to find virtual field trips, both free and paid. Our website, omahazoo.com/zoo2u, lists all of our Zoo2u virtual field trips. You can also go to cilc.org, which is out of Mankato, Minnesota. That's a great way to search for both paid and free programs. I strongly recommend you go there if you're looking for any virtual field trip. It's where people were going years before everyone was doing this, before Zooming was cool. So the organizations that have programs on there are very experienced, have been doing it for a while. The programs are vetted before they're put on, and there's a ranking system and so you can really be sure that you're getting good quality programming when you book through them. Also, the ESUCC compiled a list of free programs, free virtual field trips that you can find on their NVIS site, which I've listed here. And if you want, I think you can take a screenshot of this if you'd like those URLs. Also, we'll be posting the URLs later or posting a copy of my slides. If you're looking for a less interactive program, there are a ton of places to find free resources, starting with Omaha Zoo. We've got a whole bunch of webcams up now. We created an entire series of interactive educational videos. I did these at home, and you can go to that link, that Zoo from Home link, and you can check them out. But I wanted to show you. So this is some of the interactive educational content that I was making all throughout March with my family. And we were putting together these interactive videos, and there's I think about 20 of them that I made of interactive educational videos that we made from in my house. And they're really fun. There's worksheets that go with each of them. There are also keeper videos that go with each of them. You got to kind of scroll down to get to mine. We did ours just for 20 days, and marketing kept doing some videos every single day. And then one thing that happened, which is really great, it used to be hard to find and to track down all of these programs, but there's 2 websites that are still tried and true. EarthCam is a great compilation of webcams from around the world that are free. But if you want to be making a difference when you're connecting, you can go to Snapshot Serengeti, and you can participate in a citizen science project. So you're not looking at live webcams, but you're looking at cameras and animals and helping to identify them for science. That's what this picture is there. But since COVID, there's 1 million people online who've compiled lists of free virtual tours, free virtual resources. And one of your best bets these days is to just Google free virtual tours, because since March, there's about 1 million people who've put all these resource lists together. And this is my contact information here. If anyone needs to reach out to me, feel free to call or email. I'll be available to answer any of your questions. Also, if you'd like to set up a program for your kids over the summer or once you're back in school, we can do it either in class or we can do it with kids at home or even some kind of a mix. Oh, and 12:32, I did pretty good on time. If there are any questions, anyone have a question, you can just either raise your hand and I'll look for you, push the raise hand button, type it into the chat, or you can even just come on in and ask. All right, here's one on the chat. This is interesting. We've allowed virtual backgrounds when families join from home so that they can have a camera on without letting everyone look into their house. Good to have a different point of view. Yeah. What I've recommended from the teachers I know who've banned it have basically just said, yes, you're going to have to move your camera to point at a blank wall. And I found that it's not too onerous for people to find a hallway or a wall where you don't see the rest of the house. The teachers who did it, they did get that pushback from parents. I was chatting with one this morning, and she was on it with virtual backgrounds because they'd had a couple of kids share inappropriate pictures that way. And it took them a couple days, and they had to just move their setup to somewhere that was more appropriate. But she does give permission. So one child was at her grandma's house, and grandma didn't want a camera on. And so they made an exception, just had the child turn the camera off because grandma was there. The other question I have, do I use Zoom polls to ask questions? I do sometimes use polls. I usually use them just for fun. It's a little bit of a hassle to make the polls for every meeting, and we do a lot of these meetings. So for me, I usually just do a fun one as kind of an icebreaker poll instead of creating big polls to be really educational, because if you have it as a key part of your thing, you have to go and you'd have to type those in every single time.
Peter, we have a set of regular questions that we use each time that is our impact data. So we do that instead of a survey, and polls works really well for that.
Oh, that does sound like a really cool way to use it. Yeah. I hadn't considered using them that way. I like to hear all these tips that other people have. Every time I get to watch someone else give a Zoom presentation, I'm like, oh, I should take that, or oh, I can use that in my presentation. So hopefully those of you who are watching have gotten a little bit out of it that way too, where you can use something. I'll show you the jellyfish too. I still have a lot of people connected, so let's take a quick look at the jellyfish. There we go. These are the West Coast sea nettles. We've actually had the lights off on them a lot to save energy since the zoo's been closed as a cost saving, because jellyfish don't care if it's light or dark. They just swim, and they swim up and down and then they drift with the currents. We feed these other plankton, sometimes small baby moon jellies, sometimes microscopic rotifers, various other foods. And our zookeepers, if you're wondering, they do get stung by the jellyfish. That is definitely a part of the job. There are 2 keepers who focus on the jellies and on the coral. And so they're the ones who take the brunt of it. What they'll do if they know they're gonna have to, say, reach in and untangle jellies that get stuck together, is they'll put vinegar on their arms as a way of numbing those nematocyst stinging cells. Jellies get such a bad reputation because they sting you on the ocean, but the jellies aren't the problem. Jellies are able to survive when the sharks are taken away. And the sharks we saw today are in peril. The zebra shark is an endangered species. The sandbar sharks are listed as threatened, and that's because of shark finning, that they've been over harvested for shark fin soup. And it's a really big deal when you take the top predators out of the ocean. You end up getting these big jellyfish blooms that can really cause problems. Do I have any final questions from those of you who are still here? Well, thank you all so much for tuning in with me. I hope you had an awesome experience and a good lunch. If you'd like, I can stick around for about 5 more minutes and walk you over to one other tank on my cell phone so you can see the difference in quality between a good quality cell phone camera on a good internet connection and being hardwired.
Yeah, I think we'd like to take a little walk with you. While you walk, I just want to really say thank you. I learned so much about how to make a Zoom meeting more engaging, plus learned more about the animals in the aquarium. You have a lot of expertise and a lot of tips for engaging the audience. So
thanks so much, Kim.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we'll make sure and post the information that you shared, your PowerPoint. I know other people want to watch the recording of this webinar and learn from you.
Excellent. So I'm going to swap over to my other camera here. Go. And let's go take, and you can probably see the difference already in picture quality, but I'll take you over to the coral, something that we saw before. And you can see the difference between the cell phone and the high zoom that we had before.
Wow.
So it tends to be a little jumpier and not quite as clear, but the color balance is really great.
Beautiful.
On my phone, the color balance seems to be just spot on, but you lose a little bit of resolution. You can see, though, just how far back this coral reef goes. It looks like it's a very flat tank, but that's because a lot of these corals go farther back on the top because they need to be close to the light. Over there is the blue tang, the same fish as Dory. I was told this is one of the oldest fish in the aquarium, that she's about 20 years old. And part of the reason the color is better on the coral tank is because I'm right next to it. So we were at a maximum zoom to get those shots before, and now I'm at a more natural zoom. And I do think, kids have commented on the color, I do think it's a little bit of a trade-off. We also are dealing with a very dark aquarium, and the fish tank is really far back into the dark, farther back than you look. So the color difference isn't nearly as noticeable when we're in the rainforest or the desert, which are well lit. This is the other coral reef tank here. That's the unicorn fish swimming along. These sticks are here from when we feed the fish. So we'll drop down algae wrapped around the stick, and the fish will come over and eat the algae off of it, the ones that eat plants. The ones that eat meat will drop brine shrimp as the main diet that they get, though occasionally we do mix that up with other small bits of fish. A good way to kind of see the limits of cell phone technology. I can take amazing videos of these seahorses if I just record a video on my phone. But if I'm in Zoom, the seahorse is rather blurry, even though it's not very far away. And seahorses are really cool because they swim with their dorsal fins instead of their tails. So that's one of the reasons that they have to hang on, because they're such weak swimmers. Their tails they use for holding on, and then they are a weak swimmer with that dorsal fin. The giant Pacific octopus is out. And this big tube is a place that it can hide. There may have been some food in it too. It may have been an enrichment item with some food in it. The pink things on the window are anemones. The one that's closed back here by the jelly is closed up, or sorry, closed by the octopus is closed because there's an octopus next to it. But the anemone right here is open, and you can see how these animals can open and close. And when they're open, they try to trap plankton or fish and pull them into their mouth, which is on the far side. But they actually move around this tank. They don't stay put where we put them because anemones are animals. And they're related to both the coral and the jellyfish that we've been looking at. These are the small sharks. These are the bonnet head sharks. They're about 3 feet in length. They're not baby hammerhead. They are mature sharks at this size. And the rays swimming through here are cow-nose rays. They're related to manta rays in that they're in the eagle ray family of rays that swim through the middle of the water instead of hanging out on the bottom. Before we go, I'll let you see the inside of the shark tunnel real quick. We can't actually go into the shark tunnel because the internet reception will go away and the video will freeze. If you're interested in my cart setup, this is my cart setup. We have a video conferencing camera up here. It's connected to a desktop computer. I've got a remote control and presets that I can control on the camera. I have the microscope is connected. That's just a USB microscope. And then we have a mixer down here, which allows us to connect 2 different headsets so that both I and the keeper can be connected and we can control those levels. That's right here on my head. I'm not talking through it right now. Oh, upside down. Still upside down? There we go. Oh. And then there's some upside down jellies here. These don't look good unless we get them on the camera. You can also see I'm hardwired. This is my power and my internet cable. While we're closed, I don't have to worry as much about the cords. The area is full of cords from the zookeepers anyway. Here's the shark tunnel. Again, internet doesn't work underwater. I'll lose the cell phone reception about 2 feet in. So that's why we don't hang out in there. Plus the curved glass means if you're not square to an animal, you don't get good video of it. I was hoping that we'd see the sea turtles sometime today, but they have a lot of spaces that they can hide in, so we haven't been able to see them anywhere.
Wow, Peter, thank you so much. Boy, nature is sure beautiful.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for having me.
Colors. Thank you, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon, virtually or maybe in person.
Awesome. Yeah.
Eventually.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Round of applause, Peter. Round of applause.
Thank you so much.
That was fabulous.
See everybody next week. Anna Wishart will be doing a webinar next Thursday, introducing the Entrepreneurship Challenge that you can lead with your youth. So thanks everyone for joining us again, and we have a great day, weekend. We'll see you next Thursday. Bye, Peter. Thank you.